Will our next president be America's last president? What I'm looking at here, and I think Mitch McConnell's manipulation of the debt ceiling, and you've got 2 Democratic senators taking big bucks from billionaires, and a handful of Democrats in the House of Representatives taking money from big pharma and whatnot, trying to blow up Joe Biden's Build Back Better initiative. And it illustrates this largely unacknowledged crisis point in American politics. And that is that since the end of the 1800s, basically since, arguably since the 1870s, but there's a whole lot of nuance if you try to apply the words progressive or conservative to that era after the Civil War, before 1900, because there was so much going on with collapsing Reconstruction and all that kind of stuff. So just starting at 1900, looking at the last 121 years, America has gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth at the federal level between what you could call conservative regimes or administrations, or eras actually is the best word, because this is independent of party to a large extent, between progressive and conservative eras. And that swing between the two is literally brought about by swing voters. This is why we call them swing voters. They're the people who have weak party affiliations. When they combine with either the Democratic or Republican Party, either the conservative or progressive movements, they shift kind of the Overton window. They shift the norm in America from progressive to conservative, and then back to progressive, and then back to conservative. And if we were, and I would posit that with Biden's Build Back Better plan and all the progressive reforms that have passed the House of Representatives that are bottled up in the Senate right now, that we are now back in a progressive era. And in fact, I would argue that Trump's election in 2016 reflected a desire on the part of people to get back to that. And I'll get back to that in just a second. But just to give you a little history on how this has played out, the first flip starting in 1900 or 1901, when McKinley was assassinated and Teddy Roosevelt became president, that was the beginning of the progressive flip. And Teddy Roosevelt, on race, he invited Booker T. Washington to the White House, which made the Southern racists go crazy, but he did it. He took on the nation's largest monopolies, which is why they came to call him the Trust Buster. Teddy Roosevelt's fan. Now, he's a Republican, but he was a progressive. He took on the railroads. He regulated their prices. He put 230 million acres of land into 150 national forests, our first 5 national parks, 18 new national monuments. It lasted until 1920. In 1920, we flipped conservative. Warren Harding came in with his return to normalcy and more business in government, less government in business. And for that period from 1920 to 1932, we were in a conservative era. The conservatives, though, crashed the stock market in 29, and that flipped us back into a progressive era with the election in 1932 of Franklin Roosevelt. And that progressive era that started in 32 lasted all the way up until 1980. It was the longest era of, frankly, I think, in the history of the United States. It included Democratic presidents like, obviously like FDR and Truman and John Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. But it also, and Jimmy Carter, but it also included 2 Republican presidents, Dwight Eisenhower and Richard Nixon. And that progressive flip gave us Social Security, unemployment insurance, the minimum wage, Medicare, Medicaid, huge government-funded infrastructure programs like the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Eisenhower Highway System, the Hoover Dam, things like that. And these were embraced by Republicans as well as Democrats, maybe a little more slowly, but that was the progressive era, 1932 to 1980. And then Reagan came in 1980 with basically the same things that Harding had used in 1920 and flipped us back conservative. And we have been conservative since 1980. We've been in an era of austerity. We have not undertaken these kind of major projects like Lyndon Johnson did or Franklin Roosevelt did, or frankly Dwight Eisenhower did with the interstate highway system.